reminder of the many ways we can come together to create safer communities that offer resources for victims and survivors, hold abusers accountable, and provide education and awareness around this important topic. I'm going to read the proclamation, and then I'll introduce representatives from organizations who are deeply engaged in preventing and addressing domestic violence. Whereas domestic violence is a pattern of control in an intimate relationship where one person uses coercion and violence to gain power and control over his or her partner, and whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, genders, and income levels, Highland Park residents are not immune. And whereas, according to the Center for Disease Control, nearly 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will be a victim of domestic abuse at some point during their lifetime. And whereas too often children that grow up in violent homes have lifelong repercussions from the emotional and physical trauma of experiencing or witnessing domestic violence. And whereas domestic violence costs the nation billions of dollars annually in medical expenses, police and court costs, shelters, foster care, sick leave, absenteeism, and non-productivity. And whereas a coordinated community effort will put a stop to this crime. And whereas it's important to recognize the subtle signs of domestic abuse, how to support someone in an abusive relationship, and find out where to get help if needed. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an opportunity for citizens to learn more about preventing domestic violence and to show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, services, and assistance to victims. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month is represented by the color purple, like the Purple Heart Medal. The color is meant to be a symbol of peace, courage, survival, honor, and dedication to ending violence. Now, therefore, I, Nancy Rotering, Mayor of the City of Highland Park, do hereby proclaim October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Highland Park and urge residents to wear purple and work together to eliminate domestic violence from our community. And it's now my pleasure to introduce representatives from 4 outstanding organizations that are deeply engaged in preventing and addressing domestic violence in our community and throughout the county. We will be joined tonight by Damaris Lorta, Chief Development Officer at A Safe Place, Rebecca Weininger, Director of the Domestic Violence Practice at the North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic, Carol Ruderman, Executive Director of Shelva, and Melissa Prober, Executive Director of the National Council of Jewish Women, Chicago North Shore. We'd love to hear from each of you. Damaris, please start us off. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Damaris Lorta, and I'm the Chief Development Officer at A Safe Place, like I was introduced by. And I just wanted to take this time to thank all of you for recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It is very important, as we heard. Unfortunately, domestic violence will touch all of us one way, directly or indirectly in our lifetime. And we want to make sure that the community is aware of the services that we have available. Through the pandemic, A Safe Place has not closed our doors. We have continued to serve clients, and we have served more clients than ever before. We went from serving in our emergency shelter, being able to house about 33 individuals, to now in 1 week, we have gone up to 118 in a week of clients that we are sheltering in different hotels to try to prevent clients from being in the same space and being able to socially distance. However, we have continued to provide case management, counseling, support groups, have been able to alter some of those to make sure, again, that our staff and our community are safe. But our numbers keep increasing, even though things are starting to open up, and some people may think, things are getting better to victims of domestic violence and human trafficking. That is far from the truth. So thank you. This month coming up, we have a couple of events. October 7th, we are partnering up with CLC, College of Lake County in Grace Lake, for our candle lighting. That is October 7th. October 16th, we have our virtual candle lighting. I invite all of you to look at our website to join us as, again, we celebrate survivors of domestic violence and acknowledge those that have lost their lives due to abuse. And you join us at that event. And we will have a panel discussion. This year, we want to focus on the unheard voices, right? The children, the teenagers that have experienced domestic violence, and you'll see that in our virtual gala. And then we will continue that with our panel and discussing more about the services that we're providing and the impact on the children and the teens that domestic violence has. So we're giving them a voice, and we hope that all of you are able to join us again as we celebrate those that are survivors, right? That are able to receive the help and move forward and transform their lives. And we remember those that have lost the fight, and continue to work so there's less victims out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Mayor Rotering, honorable council members, and the City of Highland Park, good evening. My name is Rebecca Weininger, and I am the director of the Domestic Violence Law Practice at the North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic here in Highland Park. We are a completely pro bono legal services clinic for domestic violence, immigration, and housing, and I am here because our clinic, in partnership with you, remains vigilant in our dedication to shining a spotlight on the epidemic of domestic violence, lift the stigma that keeps women in our communities from getting help, and cultivating the communities in which all survivors of domestic violence have easy access to the resources they need to be legally, emotionally, and financially independent. This year, we have rethought everything. One of the most important silver linings to emerge from the pandemic is how we have thought and rethought our commitment to each other. We know firsthand that we are wrapped up in each other's well-being. But while we have affirmed our reconnection, access to the resources that some of our neighbors desperately need has been restricted, and getting basic information to women living through lockdowns with their abusers has required creativity, rethinking what meeting survivors where they are means. At the clinic, we published a website, www.bananabreadhelp.com, that looks like a banana bread recipe that's embedded with tons of domestic violence information and resources. The Banana Bread website lets survivors access the information they need without a digital footprint that their abusers can find. The success of the website led us to host monthly cooking demonstration Zooms in which members of our community cook or bake or decorate on screen while our attorneys answer questions about domestic violence, divorce, and child custody issues in the chat from people who are logged on anonymously. And we published a survivor guide that survivors can find in places that they might be alone: salons, grocery stores, banks, doctor's offices. The survivor guide has all the resources a survivor needs to help her identify that she's in an abusive relationship, to plan to leave the relationship, and how to restart her life after she leaves. Survivors can take a free copy of the guide or simply scan the QR code to get all the information on their phone. And on October 1st, in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we are launching our podcast, Shouting from the Rooftops, Destigmatizing Domestic Violence. The podcast is dedicated to the women who have been marginalized by their communities for being survivors, or who provide services to marginalized survivors. We are trying to reach anyone who needs these voices to help them get the help they need. These initiatives are successful because the people and the government of Highland Park have committed to partnering with us to throw the doors open, have difficult conversations, and acknowledge that we all have a clear stake in eradicating domestic violence. If you or someone you know wants to talk about our pro bono representation of survivors of domestic violence, or even just have a conversation about whether you are in an abusive relationship, please call us at 847-737-4042. We will meet you where you are. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Carol?
Hi, I'm Carol Ruderman, Executive Director of Shalva and longtime resident of Highland Park. As Executive Director, I'm very grateful, and as a resident, I'm very proud that Mayor Rotering and the Highland Park City Council recognize the importance of raising awareness of domestic violence and making sure the community is aware of life-saving resources. It's an honor to be included in this proclamation along with our valued partner agencies. What everyone's doing is amazing. The North Shore Legal Clinic, A Safe Place, and Ncjw. So at Shalva, we specialize in supporting Jewish women experiencing and healing from domestic abuse through counseling, supportive services, and community education. We serve clients from all over Lake County and all over the Chicago metropolitan area. And while our demographics vary from year to year, I just looked them up, about 14% of our clients live in Highland Park and Deerfield. We offer free confidential domestic abuse counseling in a culturally sensitive and caring environment for as long as needed. The healing process is a journey. There is no quick fix to this. We tailor counseling sessions for each woman's unique circumstances and help guide them to find the peace and safety they deserve. We offer a 24-hour help crisis line, safety planning, financial assistance, interest-free loans, legal support, case management, and referrals. Due to COVID, we continue to provide our services primarily virtually or over the phone. We also offer live and virtual education programs. Some are tailored to the Jewish community. We work with synagogues in Highland Park and groups and elsewhere, and also professional trainings for mental health, medical, legal, and law enforcement professionals. It is critical that these professionals, as well as community members, recognize the red flags and know how to respond and refer someone to DV professionals. On our website, shalvacares.org, we have an interactive program to prepare you to help a friend and show you care. For someone in an abusive relationship, the hardest thing to do is pick up their phone and call for help. And the number one reason someone has the courage to call Shalva is that another person encouraged them to do so. So please visit our website and walk through the program. And if you know someone and you feel like you need some extra help, just call our office, 773-583-HOPE. We will work with you one-on-one because how you say it and what you say is critical. We also have some exciting programs for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. On October 5th, we're participating in a Cook County, I know this is Lake County, Domestic Resource Forum panel discussion, but I'm on the panel, so I had to say it. On October 14th at noon, we have a program on the Jewish divorce process and get refusal. Our speaker will be Rabbi Yonah Rice, Chief Rabbi of the CRC and a Yale-trained attorney. CLEs are available for this program. On October 26th, we are pleased to present a conversation about domestic abuse with best-selling author Lundy Bancroft. He wrote the classic, Why Does He Do That?, and many other books. He's a workshop leader and an expert consultant on domestic abuse. Ncjw and JCFS are partnering with us to help get the word out. All these programs are virtual and no charge. Finally, we have a new version of our lawn signs. And I hope that we're asking community members to display a sign, of course, adhering to city guidelines in front of their home or business. They're free. And for more information on all our activities, our resources, and to get a yard sign, please just go to our website, shalvacares.org. Thank you again for raising awareness, recognizing Shalva, and acknowledging that domestic violence is a community issue.
Thank you. Thank you. Melissa?
Thank you, Mayor Rodering and council members for inviting NCJW to speak today in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. NCJW was founded in Chicago in 1893 and has been working hard for almost 130 years to confront the most urgent social and economic challenges facing women, children, and families. I just wanted to highlight briefly 3 of our current initiatives that support victims and survivors of domestic violence. First, we hold a domestic violence court watch at the Cook County Domestic Violence Court in Skokie. NCJW Court Watch organizes community volunteers to monitor both criminal and civil proceedings to make sure victims get appropriate, efficient, and effective protection, and that offenders are held accountable. Next, NCJW facilitates the Illinois Silent Witness Initiative, which honors those who have died from acts of intimate partner violence. Life-size red figures, such as the 2 behind me, bear a shield telling the story of an Illinois woman killed as a result of domestic violence. I know that the city of Highland Park usually hosts a set of silent witnesses each October when people are in person. And we thank you for your support, and we certainly are available next year and hope you'll be able to host a set next October. Finally, our Luggage for Freedom initiative is back and is holding its annual packing and delivery day on Sunday, October 24th at the Westridge Center. The goal of Luggage for Freedom is to provide a sense of dignity to women who are staying at and transitioning out of domestic violence and homeless shelters by giving them a suitcase packed with personal and household items. To that end, Luggage for Freedom provides gently used luggage packed with new towels, sheets, and toiletries to women leaving local shelters to start their life anew. We also provide backpacks with books and stuffed animals for children. The Luggage for Freedom project has an incredible ability to directly impact women and children in a positive way at a time when they are the most vulnerable. You can find out more information about these and all of our programs on our website, which is ncjwcns.org. Thank you.
Terrific. And so thank you all for your compassion and for all of your hard work on behalf of survivors and their families. I'll rename who is with us this evening: A Safe Place, the North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic, Shalva, and the National Council of Jewish Women. Their links will be on the city's website and will also be provided in this week's e-news. But again, thank you all for joining us this evening on this vital issue. So appreciate your hard work. Thank you. Thank you. Continuing on under the report of the mayor, I have one other item. It is Latinx Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th through October 15th, an opportunity to celebrate the achievements, cultures, and people of Hispanic and Latin American countries. The date was chosen in honor of the independence of 5 Latin American countries: Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Mexico and Chile celebrate their independence on September 16th and 18th, respectively. And so from art and music to scientific discoveries, literature, journalism, politics, and sports, Hispanic and Latinx Americans have greatly contributed to the American experience. Heritage Month is also an opportunity for education, and the city encourages individuals to take advantage of checking out books or videos at the Highland Park Public Library, and there are various virtual activities planned throughout the area. The National Museum of Mexican Art has recently reopened to the public, and admission is free every day. Information about their exhibits and activities is available at nationalmuseumofmexicanart.org. Delighted to celebrate this important month and these important contributions. Thank you. That is it for the report of the mayor. The next item on our agenda is business from the public. Gita, do we have business from members of the public that want to be heard on issues not on tonight's agenda?
Thank you, Mayor. So just as a reminder to the public, they can email the city at cityhp@cityhbil.com. We have not received any emails for items for the city council meeting. City Hall is open, but there is no one here other than staff. And we do have 17 people who have joined us for this meeting. So at this time, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, if you could raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you at that time. Okay, and I don't see anything, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We will continue on then with our scheduled business. Items for omnibus vote consideration. Items 1 through 19 have been grouped together for an omnibus vote. I'm seeking a motion to approve items 1 through 19. Council Member Stone, I see your hand up.
Yes, can I pull number 5, please?
Sure.
And then I'm happy to make a motion, although I see another hand up.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Could we pull number 12, please?
Okay, so I'm seeking a motion to approve items 1 through 4, 6 through 11, 13 through 19.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions about items 1 through 4, 6 through 11, 13 through 19? Any from the public, Gita?
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays, and items 1 through 4, 6 through 11, 13 through 19 have been approved. Item 5 is approval of the city's 2021 to 2022 snow and ice control plan. Councilmember Stone, you asked to pull this.
Yes, thank you. In this request for council action, it said that we have a goal of getting the sidewalk plowing complete on the routes near schools by 7 or 8 in the morning. And there's a goal in the manual for commercial business districts, but there's not a goal for the areas around schools. And I just wanted to see if we could add something on page 5 where that commercial district goal is, to say that we also have a goal for the school zones. I have always been concerned that we've prioritized the commercial districts over the school children in plowing. And that's something that has changed in recent years. So I believe it's important to note that in the manual so people are aware that the safe passage of children to school is a high priority for the city council. So I just wanted to amend the manual to include that information.
I see Councilmember Holloman has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to raise some of the issues that had come up last year in terms of the contractor plowing the individual sidewalks. I find that it's an aspirational goal, but the execution of it was problematic in the past. And I'm hesitant to engage in continuing to support the shoveling. I feel that the overall understanding of the program is not good. And I think we would be better served by just going back to a situation where homeowners are responsible for plowing their own sidewalks and not paying for that service because it wasn't very successful last year or in previous years.
Thank you. Ramesh, do you want to answer that, or Councilmember Stolberg, do you want to chime in before I?
Whatever works for you. I'm here, whatever. I'll chime in.
You know what? Let's get all the issues on the table and then we'll pass it off to Public Works. So Councilmember Stolberg and then Councilmember Littleworth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And let me preface this by saying, you know, I do a lot of snow removal in my business, and it's a very, very difficult no-win situation. It's hard. Conditions are tough. Equipment breaks down. And this year, I think finding manpower is going to be even harder than last year. With that said, and with public safety being one of our core priorities, I still agree with Councilmember Holloman. I think that if we're going to spend money and we do something, it should be done right. I think that no matter what this vendor attempts to do, I think it's a very difficult, if not impossible, task to pull off. And I would rather communicate it to the residents of Highland Park that this is what we're doing, instead of communicate to them that this is what we're doing and doing it poorly and spending money to do it. So I actually agree with Councilmember Holloman, and of course, Ramesh, I know is the guy who is in the trucks and deals with a lot of the snow. I know you have an opinion too. So Mayor, thanks for letting me give my 2 cents before Ramesh.
Thank you. Councilmember Littleworth.
Thank you. With all due respect to Council members Holloman and Stolberg, I just wanted to say that I view this completely in the other direction. I feel that this is a community of walkers. I think this is an essential service in so many ways. I think last year was an aberration. It's not to excuse it, but frankly, we received a 40% discount because they realized how poorly the performance was. I think it's going to be very difficult to staff this year, but that doesn't mean that this company isn't going to try their darndest to do so. And we have an agreement which says if they're not going to do it on time, then once again, we will receive a discount. I completely agree with Councilmember Stone that it would be nice to set better parameters for the school so people do have an expectation. I also think that we have raised an expectation where people, even if it's poorly done, feel that this is a service that as a city they would like to see. In neighboring communities, they do provide it also. And so I would really like to hope that we'll put forth our best efforts with this contractor. I think if anything, this contractor's on notice, having had a very difficult last year. They've even said to us that it's going to be difficult to find people this year. But I think that means they're just going to try their hardest do even better. And contractually, they're obligated to do so. So I'm very comfortable with it. And I want to make sure we provide as much as possible to our residents, because if the snow's that bad, people are going to be removing it themselves, but they'll also get the additional help of what we are paying to provide with tax dollars.
Thank you. Councilmember Tapia.
Yeah, just to go on the record, I am supportive of trying this again with this contractor, recognizing that last year was not a good year, recognizing that we have potential for there being some labor shortage issues here. But thinking about one of our pillars of public safety, given that we plow the streets to make ease of transportation, I see plowing the sidewalks as part of the same intent. And I would like us to see if we can work on the quality and therefore provide the residents a service that I think they deserve for safety and convenience to get the kids to the bus stops, or go on their walks or walk their dogs, or even reduce injury given the different health conditions that we have in the city and what snow removal might mean for different residents.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Stone.
Thanks. I just want to make sure to clarify that I feel like these are two separate issues. One issue is whether or not to include in the manual something regarding the school zone plowing, which I assume is happening whether this group decides to plow all the sidewalks or not. I think the school routes are routes that have been plowed traditionally. And then the second issue is whether to plow the rest of the sidewalks, which is something that I am in favor of. And I know we had issues with it last year, and I'm hopeful, as Councilmember Littwer stated, that the contractor will make a special push to make sure that it happens right this year.
Mayor, just procedurally, if I may, one moment. So item number 5 was pulled, which is the snow and ice control plan. The hand shoveling contract is actually item number 8. So that has already been approved. I don't know if the council members just wanted to voice their opinion for the record only and support it. But I just wanted to be clear of the 2 different action items.
And actually, item number 10 is the sidewalk snow removal.
Or 10, yes. Sorry. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, but continuing on with comments from the council, Councilmember Holloman.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment too that I'm not against the idea that we would shovel all the sidewalks. In fact, this came out of the fact that we shoveled so much of the sidewalks, right? If you go back and look at how this evolved, we were already committing to shoveling the areas around the train stations and the schools and the streets surrounding that. So we already did a substantial portion of the shoveling. But what was happening is that people went, well, why can't my street get done? Why can't my street get done? So we evolved into doing all of it. And I think in theory, that's a great idea. And clearly there's support for continuing it this year. The concerns I have are specifically with the execution on that, and that we have never done this well. If you look at the complaints that we get every year, after snow falls, it's about snow shoveling. Nobody's calling us and telling us, oh, this is great. We're getting, you didn't do my sidewalk, you ran over my, whatever. There's a lot of complaints about it. And if we want to do this and do this well, I am fine exploring other options for doing it. If we're going to commit to it, does that mean that becomes a capital expenditure and we buy the equipment that we need? We commit to having people in our, public works staff to do it, because the way that we're trying to do it, that's the problem that I have with it. It's not effective. So, I'm doubtful that in a year that we have a labor shortage, that this is suddenly going to get better. But I think, can we look at this overall and make a bigger picture review of this and see what are the other ways we could do this if this year does not go well? Because I can understand how people want their sidewalks shoveled, but they also want them shoveled like they do in Glencoe, which was in 24 hours or, sooner than the time frame that we're doing it in, and more frequently than the 4-inch limit.
Thank you, Councilmember Holloman. And I think it's important to note that Glencoe obviously is a much smaller area in which it needs to be done. So they're fortunate that they get to get it done so quickly, but appreciate your standpoint. I did ask the city manager to look into the cost of leasing or purchasing equipment, having people to do it. And I believe the number came out to multiple of almost 9 times. I see Ramesh shaking his head. Yes, 9 times the expense of having it done by an outside vendor. We all had very strong concerns and frustrations last year about all the trials that this group seemed to go through. But while you may be hearing complaints, I'm hearing from most particularly walkers and dog walkers how much they appreciate this service and they remember when it wasn't done. And I can tell you that the enforcement of make your neighbor shovel is a virtual impossibility. Yes, people should be doing this. Yes, many people do what's supposed to be done based on our city ordinance. Unfortunately, though, to go house by house and say, hey, you didn't do your front yard is just an impossibility. So I understand what you're saying. Gita, if you want to chime in with the estimated cost, and then I see Councilmember Tapia and Councilmember Littleworth have more comments to share. But City Manager, if you could jump in.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And certainly if the council's interested, we could just do a formal evaluation, provide a written report for consideration. But the first cost is the equipment purchase that we would need. Each piece of equipment on average is about $125,000. We would need several employees, and these likely would be hired as seasonal employees. It would be difficult to employ people just to say, we're just going to call you when there's 4 inches of snow or more. So these would be regular seasonal employees that we would have to employ. So that's how generally we got to that estimate of at least, $500,000-$600,000. And then certainly if the council's interested, those seasonal employees, I mean, we could modify our program and start after 2 inches of snow. I mean, they would be certainly used for other purposes as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Tapia?
Yes, in listening to Councilmember Holloman's point of view, I would agree that our desire is both, right? To have the sidewalks clear for our residents for all the conveniences and safety issues that I think we all agree to. And yet I think they do deserve, it being done well and consistently and reliably. So I recognize that there's some heavy costs there that require some decision-making on our part. I would welcome, a look together at what the cost would be. But I think our citizens we should do what we can to try to meet both objectives.
Thank you. Councilmember Littleworth?
I'm thrilled that we've already priced out some other alternatives. I think it's a great idea to perhaps look next year or toward next year to see if there's a different way of doing this, especially since so many of these contracts will be up in terms of the 3-year and 1-year extensions. But for this year, I think it's wonderful that we got it in place. And frankly, I have to say, we usually hear from people when it's a complaint, not when it's a job well done. And so when I go walking and I hear people say, I can't believe they've actually done my sidewalks, it's really wonderful. And those aren't the people who are going to call in. That's not to say there weren't a lot of complaints. I'm not negating it. I just think that sometimes there is, there are positive ones too, but those aren't the people that necessarily call in. So I think we have a lot to look at for next year, and hopefully this year goes better than last. And let's hope there's a lot of workers out there and maybe not even that much snow.
A girl can dream. Okay, well, thank you for raising those points, everybody.
Mayor, let me address.
You didn't have a chance to chime in. Go ahead.
Yes. No, I was going to address Councilwoman Stone's. As a relate that our the 30 miles of sidewalk that the city plows and our hand shoveling contract, by contract, we notify them to be all cleared by 7 a.m. So that's how our second shift starts at 11 a.m. with that intent that we need to get all those sidewalks, by the schools cleared. And I understand Councilwoman Stone saying that we need to put that in writing. Most of the schools start at 8 o'clock. Most of the schools do not start at 7, but that is our internal mandate to the contractor to get those sidewalk cleared. So to have it in a document, I always say, every snow is different, and then the snowfall intensity, the duration will dictate how the snow clearing operation will happen. So even though it's not mentioned in the document, we do it as a practical. And that's, again, this document, those times have not been changed since the inception of this document, which has been years ago. We always mandate 7 o'clock. That's how we operate on our side at our staffing. That's how our shift works. So having that in the document, to me, again, because of the snowfall intensity, it's not the secondary. We do it as a principal, we do it. And, for that reason, I think the document was left untouched, for a lot of years. We just changed we added more locations this year, and I think we'll continue to do that. That's all I wanted to relay that to Councilman Stone, that we abide by the 7 o'clock time, even though most of the schools start much later.
Thank you. Councilmember Stone, and then we'll take action.
Yep, I understand, and I really appreciate that, Ramesh, because that was not the case before. So I'm glad that that's been added in since you've been around. But I still do think it's important to include it in the manual, just to show that we do take seriously the safety of children walking to school when there is snow on the ground. And in the future, if there are any changes to our staff, I want them to be aware as well that this is a priority for the group.
I'll make sure, Councilwoman Stone, even if I'm not here, that 7 o'clock it is inscribed in stone. Now we'll change it. We'll change it in the manual for this year and also for future use. That's not a problem.
So can I move to approve the manual as amended with that addition?
Sure.
Okay.
Seeking a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Nay.
Councilmember Littleworth.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye. 6 ayes, 1 nay, and the snow and ice control plan has been approved. Item 12, an ordinance amending Chapter 77 of the City Code, adding stop signs on Trailway at the intersection with North Avenue as recommended by the City Council. Councilman Bloomberg.
Thank you, Mayor. When this matter was before us for consideration last time, I expressed some concern because staff had urged us to put in very different controls than where we seem to be headed. I had an opportunity to speak with Mayor Rotary today, who took some time to walk through this with me. I think my concerns are reasonable. On the other hand, I also think staff has somewhat limited means to address something in an intermediate type of manner. The costs involved and the amount of work that would need to be done to meet staff's recommendation, which I do support, are rather extraordinary in the face of what may be a more routine problem and issue that the neighbors have begun to perceive. Like everybody on this council, I'm concerned about the safety of children and the management of traffic, and I understand that that's where everybody's coming from. And I just wanted an opportunity to express my thanks, my understanding of how my fellow councilmen are voting, and for the mayor taking the time to go through this with me. I also spoke to Keita about it during the intervening weeks. I think on the main, as a council, we listen to staff, we follow data-driven recommendations very well. And I don't really see this in terms of where we're headed in the majority wanting to place a stop sign as a policy deviation. I wanted to express that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Littleworth and then Councilmember Stone.
So thank you for pulling that, Councilmember Bloomberg, because I wanted to pull it also. I really want to thank staff for moving so quickly and for within, by the next meeting within 2 weeks, having a proposal on the table. We'll have the stop signs up very quickly. I think this really goes back to the whole educate, enforce, and engineer. What we're doing is everybody knows what a stop sign is. This is really what people wanted in the community. I do want to say that as part of that education, however, I'd like to see that within, I want to see a full year cycle, and I'd like staff please to go back and evaluate how successful that is in the area, because your recommendations were wonderful. It's just that I think we could stop, or we could begin with, hopefully, this type of vehicle in terms of enforcement and engineering it being just the stop signs, and hopefully that'll be sufficient for what's going to occur, but I do think we need to see a full year cycle of different sports, climates, and everything else in the area to see how successful this is. And so I'd like to hear back from staff within that similar time frame, just so we make sure we are following up on this proposal.
Thank you. I'm fairly confident that we will be doing that as a course of action, because we seem to do that at all these types of situations where we are changing traffic management to some extent. But appreciate you raising the question, and we will certainly hear back from staff. And I know we will also be hearing back from the neighbors, because this is their neighborhood and we want to know how things are working out. Councilmember Holloman and then Councilmember Stone.
I was just going to move to approve unless there's another comment.
I think Councilmember Stone had her hand up. Thank you.
I did, thank you. I'm familiar with complaints at this intersection, or going back to my time on the Transportation Advisory or Transportation Commission at that time. So, 8+ years ago, people were complaining about this area and the speeding in this area. And I understand the proposed solution is expensive, but I don't think a stop sign is going to have the desired effect. I'm willing to give it a try because of the expense of the recommendation from the engineers. But given how long this has been going on, this may be something where we need to take more drastic action. So if we're going to be doing a stop sign, I agree with Councilmember Littwer that we need to make sure that we have a report back from staff in a year or so. And I want to make sure also that that stop sign could be removed in the future if we choose to go a different route. Because I know in the minutes it said that I think it was Manny who was at the last meeting who said that typically stop signs are not removed once they're put in.
It's not advisable to remove a stop sign as noted, but if the entire street is re-engineered, I mean, we can certainly review it as a staff and come back with a report and recommendation to the city council. That would be our suggestion.
Just to clarify, similar to installation, even to removal will require some kind of a warrant. And I think as manager put it, once installed, I think we will evaluate as the request of the council in a year's time, and then we will provide that recommendation. That will include, the warrants, yea or nay on either side.
So it doesn't meet the warrants for a stop sign now, right?
Right. So once it's installed, is it advisable to remove it? That also will entail some kind of seeing basically the accident history or what are the other effects of having those stop signs, so that if it is scheduled for removal, there is some kind of a reasoning or some kind of a data driven or some kind of a reasoning on why we want to have those stop signs removed and what will the effect of that's going to be. So I think it's very important that we evaluate that and then make a sound critical recommendation to the council if we need to remove it.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bloomberg has his hand up.
I would just say that with respect to placing a stop sign now and reconsidering it later, it does have the advantage as a stop sign. If it proves to be ineffective, it wouldn't have to be removed. It can be enhanced by keeping the stop sign and reducing the size of the street if that's determined to be appropriate, and or enhanced by a strobe type signal as was recommended. So it doesn't necessarily need to come out. And because of its relative lack of expense, if we go into a more advanced method of controlling speed and traffic regulation, it's something that wouldn't impair the decision to go forward with something more pronounced.
Councilmember Littwer.
I just wanted to second Councilmember Holloman's motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. I know Mr. Goldberg wanted to make a comment from the public before we take action.
And then Mayor, there's another hand up as well.
And also Mr. Levy, I don't know if Mr. Levy wanted to comment on this item or on item 19.
Mr. Goldberg, go ahead.
Yes. Hello. This is actually Eileen Goldberg, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my husband. We have had the experience of in another neighborhood in home in Naples, having a home on a straightaway such as this where a stop sign was put in. And I just wanted to make note for the immediate neighbors to that stop sign that the amount of noise that you experience in your home is quite surprising. We didn't appreciate it when we purchased the home. You know, every landscape truck, every utility truck has to come to a stop there. And when they begin, of course, the engine starts making a loud noise to go through it. I just wanted to make certain that the homes on the corner and probably down maybe one or two homes is aware of that. I'm not trying to, pit that against the public safety, but it is something that I don't think a person really realizes it until they actually experience it themselves. And I don't know if those neighbors are aware of it. And I understand now it looks like there may be a modification that you might not be trying to narrow that area, but it seemed to me that narrowing of that area was somewhat similar to maybe what was done on First Street in downtown Highland Park. I understand that's more of a commercial street. I was just south of where the Lou Malnati's and the Once Upon a Bagel is. And by the narrowing of that street, I find that when I drive through there, I often realize that I feel like I'm going to hit the curb because it is so narrow there. And I suspect that it's going to require some type of lighting so that people are aware of how that street really narrows, which would be out of character to the rest of the street. So again, I think that's something that the neighbors should be aware of if that is going to be one of their proposals, though it sounds like maybe perhaps due to other considerations that isn't totally on the agenda to get that approved. And the other concept that we thought was there would cause quite a bit of congestion. There's a good portion of the time there that there aren't people who are crossing the street there. I suppose with children, it's probably after school or after camp or things such as that. But every time there is a soccer game, a baseball game, an ice skating class, everything else, it could cause a considerable amount of congestion. And it sounds like that my comments may be a little bit too little too late. It sounds like you folks have already decided to go forward with this, and I have to apologize. I didn't realize that that's where you were already at. But I thought that I did want to voice my comments, and thank you for allowing me to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this evening and for participating in the conversation. We always appreciate hearing from residents, so thank you for taking the time to join us tonight.
Yes, I guess I should have mentioned we've lived in the Centennial Park area for 30 years on Centennial Lane, so we do use that area, every day, several times a day. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Mayor, if I could just for clarification purposes, just so it's clear, because we have talked about a number of different concepts this evening. So the approval being considered this evening is for an all-way stop at Trailway and North Avenue. And so that is what's being considered by the City Council this evening. And then in terms of notification to the public, we did send written communication out to all the neighbors in the immediate area, so they were aware of this meeting and the consideration on the agenda.
Great, thank you. And I didn't know if Mr. Levy wanted to speak on this item or another item.
Hi, thank
Hello.
you guys. I am just trying to make sure that the item that was approved as a batch is approved. And if you guys need me to stay on the call, I'll stay on the call. Otherwise, I'm happy to drop off.
Oh, thank you for joining us. Yes, it was approved.
Okay, thank you guys. It was interesting to hear what you guys are up to, and particularly the domestic violence stuff. So
Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Will the clerk please call the vote on item 12?
Councilmember Tapia?
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Stone?
No.
Councilmember Bloomberg?
No.
Councilmember Hallman?
Yes.
Councilmember Littlewer?
Yes.
Mayor Rotering?
Yes, 5 yeses, 2 noes. Item 12 is approved. Thank you. We will continue on now to other business. Item 20, an ordinance granting a special use permit for a physical 4-3 Roger Williams Avenue. Do people need a presentation, or are we ready to have a conversation about this question?
Mayor, I can move to approve it, and then we could have the conversation if you want.
Second.
I would second it.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Holloman. Open for questions and comments, Councilmember Bloomberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm aware of the general preference for this. I've heard from people in the community. I totally get it. My own feeling is that our code isn't prepared to accept this, and I don't know that our code is right anymore in terms of what permitted, conditional, or special uses may be in our various commercial areas of downtown. Since we last took a hard look at commercial zoning in Highland Park, a lot has changed. We've been through the pandemic, and things are very different in terms of what we need and what we want, and I recognize that. And I think that requires a re-examination given the changes that we've had. But as I perceive things to be right now, this would be sort of inconsistent with what we previously expressed pretty strongly as a policy. Recognizing that those policy considerations were made in a very different world, I don't intend to stand in the way of this. I don't really have any opposition to it. I'm not going to vote in favor of it. I'm going to vote present. But I wanted to explain the reason for that. I understand that by voting present, my vote will go with the majority, and I not only understand that, I'm fine with it. And as I say, I don't really oppose it, but I'm not comfortable taking this position under the existing code. And I think that we need to reevaluate the code affecting our main commercial corridors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Holloman, then Stone, then Lidwar.
Yeah, I just wanted to express my strong support of this. As Tony stated, we are at a point where we've reconsidered zoning throughout our downtown area. We are doing that, is my understanding. The council has directed staff to take a look at Ravinia, so we're in the process of doing that, and I just don't want to hold up an opportunity while we're going through that process. So appreciate everything that's been said. I think this is a great addition to the community in the same way that we saw Pediatric Partners come into downtown Highland Park. I think we will also see the benefit from this establishment. I'm very much looking forward to having them join Ravinia. It is a new world, and this is a good addition.
Thank you. Councilmember Stone?
Thanks. I agree with Councilmember Bloomberg that I'm concerned about given the zoning in this area, about approving it just based on the zoning. But I do also agree with Councilmember Holloman that this would be a good addition to that area. And I think maybe the distinction for me is further east on Roger Williams is more of a retail and commercial type of district. This is fairly far west. And this block of Roger Williams is not as retail oriented and really hasn't been for a long time, except perhaps for the other side of the street. So I'm comfortable with this in this location, but I'd like to revisit the uses that are allowed in that area.
Thank you very much. So essentially, maybe west of Broadview being less retail, less food and beverage. Is that an accurate representation, Councilmember Stone?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Stolberg. Actually, Councilmember Lidwar was next, and then Councilmember Stolberg. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to put my hand down because Councilmember Holloman put it exactly as I wanted to, but after Councilmember Stone's distinction, I think those are all things that are important. And as we rewrite and we look at it and reevaluate and hear staff's recommendations, I think those should come into account. But at this point, that's not the way the code's written. And so I think that conditional use gives us a reason why we want to move into a new way of looking at it. And I think it's just a matter of now over time studying it more. So you're completely right. And I really applaud the council for taking this step because I think it's imperative in light of the ways things have changed and the changes that we need to accept and learn about and from. So I thank staff already ahead of time for the work that I know they're going to have to do to help us figure out where we go with this. But I don't see that as the distinction at this point.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Stolberg and then Tapia and then Holloman.
Thanks, Mayor. I quickly, I agree with what everyone has said. I think, you know, we learn as a council too. Our code is meant to live and breathe and adapt. And I think that was perfectly displayed in the POSO. Over the last couple of years, we've made some exceptions on pulling things out of it, extending certain areas, and look at where we came back to with Baird and Warner on the corner there, where initially they came before us, they were denied, and as we loosened the restrictions on the POSO, luckily they came back, and I think in the long term they'll prove to be a good tenant and a good member of the community. I do not have a problem with this use, and I think one of the things that is important is that we do spend time updating this code, and I think the way the code is written gives us a lot of leeway just by making things conditional versus permitted. And it doesn't mean that by allowing this, even though it is not 100% consistent with policy and directive at the moment, it doesn't mean we have to open the floodgates and allow everything. I'm not in favor of that either, but I think it gives us an opportunity to evaluate what is in the code and to create an appropriate distinction between permitted and conditional, which has to come before plan and design and ultimately approved by the council. So at the same time, we know we always hear from our owners, our residents, what can the council do? We have vacant stores, we look bad, whatever it is. It doesn't mean approve everything at all costs, but I think that it warrants looking at things that make sense for the community. In my mind, there are things that are permitted in conditional uses currently that are much more inconsistent right now with what we would want than this type of establishment. So I think it is a bad idea to not approve a good use with a long-term resident and a good business. Eliminating some of the vacancies. I mean, just to the east, we've got a brand new building that's got, 4 or 5 storefronts that are vacant right now. I like the idea of filling space, but not at all costs. So I think Councilmember Bloomberg gave an excellent comment. I'll go a little farther. I will be supporting of this, but I am willing, able, and looking forward to helping review the code, the conditional and the permitted uses, and see if today's world and what our code has intersect.
Thank you. Councilmember Tapia.
Yeah, I think I would welcome that good debate and discussion and evaluation as council member colleagues have expressed. One thing that I would like to strive for is whereas we can streamline to sort of meet the facts on the ground of how things are happening and not have to, we can remove extra steps when they can be removed, like the conditional use permit process. If it's warranted by facts on the ground and other evaluation, I would really like to explore that.
Thank you. I believe we have a motion on the table from Councilman Holloman. Don't believe we have a second, do we?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Oh, hello.
Sorry, I thought
Annette seconded? Okay, thank you. One question that I do have, Corporation Counsel, and that is specific to the question of looking further. Do we add that as an amendment or simply direction to staff and we take action on this one question, but Joel is listening carefully?
Yeah. So my recommendation would be to proceed with the vote on this ordinance. If it passes, you can then supplement just the record by giving direction to staff. Again, because it's virtual, that would have to be by a motion and a vote. If the motion fails, you can also provide direction to staff. But I would vote on the motion that's on the table independent.
Sounds good. Thank you. Councilman Holloman. Councilmember Holloman.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor, I believe we've already directed staff to look at this area and to reconsider the zoning. Maybe Gita can weigh in on that. I could be wrong.
Yeah, too. Maybe springtime.
Yes, it is on our work plan, Mayor.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that answers that question. And at this point, Councilmember Littler, you have your hand up again? No?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what Council Elrod said. it's not about the ordinance, it's about the motion on the table. And we're not shifting this from any type of use at this point. We're just granting this conditional permit and going forward, and then, or this conditional use, excuse me,
Special
and then have
use.
staff consider it. I just want to make sure we're all clear on that.
It is the ordinance that's in your package. That's the subject of the motion that's on the table. That's what I meant by independent. Taking vote on this motion to approve the ordinance granting a special use.
Abundantly clear. Let's take the vote.
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Present.
Councilmember Hellman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littleworth.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 6 ayes, 1 present, and item 20 is approved. Thank you.
Mayor, I'll just recognize Miss Pam Tomlinson has joined us for tonight's meeting as well. She's one of the owners of the business.
Terrific. Thank you for your application. We look forward to welcoming you into the Ravinia Business District. Didn't know if you had anything you wanted to say.
Hi, I just wanted to thank everyone so much. This has been a great process for both my husband and I to kind of sort through and really learn the inner workings of how the city works. I live in the community and I've been a physical therapist for 16 years and I can't wait to open my practice in Ravinia. It's really kind of emotional, but I'm really, really excited and I thank you guys for your support.
Absolutely. Delighted to welcome you to the Ravinia Business District. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, continuing on, our next item is business from the council. I think it goes without saying that sustainability is a key component of many of our initiatives. And to that end, city council members and staff are consistently engaged with professionals and peers throughout the region on increasingly urgent topics surrounding climate change. In support of this work, a resolution endorsing the regional climate plan of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus was on tonight's council meeting agenda. Councilmember Stone has been working with the MMC on this project for the last several years and will provide a brief report on this effort and its goals. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank you and my council colleagues for endorsing the Regional Climate Action Plan tonight. As you said, I've been involved in the regional plan for the last 3 or so years, and I was honored to be part of the launch of the plan over the summer. Highland Park is one of just 6 municipalities in Illinois that has signed on to the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, formalizing the city's commitment towards measurable greenhouse gas emissions reductions. We've looked at sustainability in our city operations. We've assessed emissions to make changes that are data-driven and that will have the biggest impact. Operational cost savings often offset the higher upfront costs. Highland Park has worked to reduce our greenhouse gases by setting a policy to replace many city vehicles with hybrid or electric vehicles. We've retrofitted streetlights within city properties to LEDs, placed electric accounts on 100% renewable energy subscriptions, generating renewable energy credits. We've expanded curbside composting to residents and businesses to divert organics from landfills, included energy efficiency and requests for proposals for building equipment, became a Soul Smart community, subscribed municipal accounts to a community solar project supporting solar development in the state. And we've been improving our streets and sidewalks to make it easier for people to get around by foot and bicycle. While Highland Park is committed to reducing greenhouse gases within our own boundaries, the need to address climate change far surpasses municipal borders. By focusing on a regional level, we have a greater impact on the environment, and we can achieve economies of scale by pursuing sustainability initiatives together with our neighboring communities. So I want to just thank the city staff for all of their work to make Highland Park more sustainable at the city level, and to the mayor and council for making this a priority. And I just have one additional item I wanted to report on today, which is related. 3 years ago, Geeta, Ramesh, and I met with PACE, the Suburban Transit Agency, to discuss the possibility of pursuing electric buses for the fleet within Highland Park. Highland Park has a special relationship with PACE since we operate and maintain buses under contract with PACE for both the fixed route and the Ravinia Festival shuttle bus services in our area. Earlier this month, PACE announced a commitment to a zero-emission bus fleet by 2040, and they plan to add electric buses beginning in 2022 to the Waukegan garage. Given the urgency of the climate crisis and the fuel and maintenance cost savings of electric buses, this is great news. So I want to just say thank you to Highland Park for getting the ball rolling on this and to PACE for committing to decarbonize their fleet.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Business from city staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for public information, we'll proceed after the city council meeting to the committee of whole, where we will have another budget workshop. And then just for public information, our next city council meeting will be on a Tuesday, October 12th, in light of the federal holiday on Monday.
Great. Thank you. To that end, I am seeking a motion to adjourn this city council meeting.
So moved. Second.
Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes and no nays. We are adjourned as a city council. I will now call to order the committee of the whole for the city council of the city of Highland Park, Illinois, September 27th, 2021. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Here.
Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Councilmember Holloman.
Here.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Here.
Mayor Rotering.
Here, we have a quorum. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the August 23rd, 2021 committee of the whole meeting?
So moved.
So moved. Okay, second.
Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays. The minutes are approved. Our scheduled business tonight is a 2022 budget workshop. Welcoming Julie Logan. Thank you for joining us. And Geeta, do you want to kick off the workshop?
Great. Yes, thank you, Mayor. For public information, do want to just advise the public that we started our budget process early this spring, meeting with the city council to review the city's mission, priorities, to obtain policy feedback and guidance from the city council to make sure that our proposed fiscal year 2022 budget is reflective of their policy direction. And so here we are, fast forward after several budget workshops and a lot of work. We are presenting this evening just highlights of revenue, expenditures, fund balances, and we'll touch upon the schedule and then the next steps thereafter, which you can see here. This budget presentation will be posted on our website tomorrow. So if anyone is interested in reviewing the details, it will be posted on our website. And as always, if anyone has questions, they're welcome to contact us at any time. We'll turn it over right now to Director Logan to walk us through the PowerPoint.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. As Geeta indicated, I'll be walking you through an overview tonight. And let me just, sorry, I'm getting me a little bit of a delay on this end. All right. So this just shows the summary of the process. And as we can see, we are about halfway through at this point where we're kind of approaching the halfway mark. So I'll just kind of dig in and get started. So the 2022 proposed budget includes a balanced operating budget. We call the budget balance when the operating revenues meet or exceed the operating expenditures. For 2022, we expect the revenue to exceed operating expenditures by $14 million. The proposed operating revenue of $81 million is expected to be 2% higher than 2021. Included in the proposed budget are capital expenditures of $25 million for infrastructure, facility, and equipment, including $8 million for a new fire station in the Ravinia district. The proposed capital funding is from a combination of operating revenue, grants, debt financing, and $1.3 million of strategic fund drawdowns of excess reserves pursuant to city-approved finance policy. So there's a lot on this chart, but let me kind of walk through it so that you can focus on various parts of the chart. The charts at the top of the slide show the trend of total city and operating revenue. 2022 operating revenue of $81 million, as I had indicated, is expected to be 2% higher than 2021, and 2021 operating revenue is expected to be 7% higher than 2020. The most significant estimated operating revenue changes from 2020 through 21 and through 22 are for the city's general multimodal transportation, water and sewer fund, sales tax, payment in lieu of tax, government grants, reimbursements, charges for services, property tax, business tax, building permits, and transit revenue. And the reason I've been speaking a little bit to the City Council about going from 2020 to 2022 is, and what I just spoke to are a lot of the revenues that were affected by the pandemic. So showing the progression from, the revenues that had previously been affected or, and are still somewhat affected by the pandemic, and starting to show the recovery of those revenues over the 2-year period. A 2022 total revenue of $101 million is expected to be 3% lower than 2021, although 2021 is expected to be 21% higher than 2020. And the year-on-year revenue being lower is really due to non-operating factors, and I'll get into that on the next slide. So really, the takeaway here is that the operating revenue, is on the upswing. The revenue sources at the bottom of the charts at the bottom really show two things, where the revenue is incurred, so the funds that it's in, and then where the city sources that revenue from. And if you really focus on that bottom right chart, it really demonstrates the city's policy of maintaining diversified revenues to keep city services as low as possible, the cost as low as possible to the city, to the property taxpayer. So some underlying assumptions for the proposed revenue. The 2021 estimate and the 2022 proposed budget operating revenue reflect current estimates in an improving yet still evolving pandemic environment. The city continues to monitor revenue trends for changes versus expectations, and future amendment may be required as the economy continues to evolve. So in addition to the operating impacts that were discussed on the prior slide, the non-recurring revenue is impacted significantly by the debt proceeds in the 3 years. So debt proceeds of $5 million and $18 million in 20 and 21 were issued to refinance existing debt. And that resulted in a savings of $2 million over 10 years. And then the city is proposing issuing new debt of $12 million in 2022 to finance the new Ravinia fire station, some street improvements, and some sewer improvements. Going on with the assumptions, the city's property tax levy should continue to be approximately 8% of the residents' total tax bill. And then each budget year, the city reviews fees and taxes to ensure that they're fair and comparable with other communities, and that they support a consistent high level of city services. The 2022 budget includes changes for property taxes, water rate, taxi license fees, coliform fee, certified vital records fees, and certain parking citations. Moving on to expenditures, the 2022 proposed expenditures are estimated at $102 million. 76% of city expenditures are dedicated to public safety and public works services. And given that the most significant portion of city expenditure is for provision of service to residents, 54% of expenditure is due to personnel costs and contractual services. 24% is dedicated to capital improvements to improve the city environment. 13% is for transfers between funds, and then 8 to 9% is for debt service and other operating costs. There are several assumptions supporting these proposed expenditures. Staffing is budgeted at 259 full-time equivalent employees, or FTEs. This is 8.8 FTEs greater than 2021, but it's still down 18 FTEs from 2020 when the city reduced headcount by 26.8 headcount, or 10% of the workforce. Operating expenditures are expected to be approximately $400,000 higher year on year. And these changes, they reflect a conservative increase in service and staffing following that 2020-2021 staffing reduction of 26.8 FTE and other cost reductions due to the city's economic response plan to the negative impact of the pandemic on city revenue. Other personnel variances that are included are consistent with the city's compensation plan, collective bargaining requirements, and anticipated higher insurance costs due to national insurance market trends. And as I previously mentioned, capital improvements are $25 million for infrastructure, facilities, and equipment, including the $8 million for the new Ravinia Fire Station. And then lastly, there are transfers between funds in the total of the expenditures of $13 million. Those are really for public safety pensions, capital improvements, and reimbursement from the water, enhanced 911, and sustainability funds to the general fund for related expenditures that are planned in the general fund. So when you take the revenue and the expenditures that are proposed, what we're showing here is really the impact year to year on the city's fund balances. So this chart, a lot of numbers, I know. What it's really showing is from the beginning of the year, beginning of 2021, saying what are the operating revenues that are budgeted or proposed, what are the operating expenditures that are proposed, what are the debt, capital, and transfers that are proposed, coming to a net decrease year on year, resulting in where the city expects fund balances to be at the end of 2022. We expect total fund balances, they're currently projected to be over $46 million, and the general fund is projected at almost $28 million. The strategic fund drawdowns in excess of reserves, they're across several funds. They net to $1.3 million, and they're really for proposed expenditures pursuant to city-approved finance policy. All fund balances meet or exceed the city's fund balance targets at year-end 2022, except for the Housing Trust Fund, which is strategically proposed below target, followed by fund balance replenishment in the following years. The Housing Trust Fund balance and what is incorporated in that, that'll be further discussed during the community development budget presentation in October. Fund balances in excess of targets have been accumulated in expectation of capital improvements planned in the city's 10-year capital improvement program. So each year, as the city develops its budget, it projects out 10 years. It balances its funds out 10 years, and it projects out its capital expenditures 10 years. So some of those capital expenditures don't occur in small chunks. Some of them occur in larger chunks, and so there is some accumulation in anticipation of those capital expenditures over the 10-year period. And then when you look at that 10-year period, all funds approach the city's fund balance targets either within the 10-year period or by the end of the 10-year period. The that is the presentation that I had for this evening. I'm happy to take questions from the council, kind of next steps in the process. In October, we will have presentations from each of the departments at Committee of the Whole, and then the proposed budget will be published on the website on November 1st, and then brought to City Council for adoption on November 22nd.
Terrific.
I'll stop sharing and see if there are any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie. It's unbelievable how in like a handful of slides, you can summarize what I know has been months and months and months of very detail-oriented, comprehensive, careful planning, cast of thousands involved, almost, not quite 1,000, but a lot of folks participating in this process. So please share our thanks and gratitude with your team and with senior management and all the folks who have been a part of all of this. Thank you.
Mayor, your comments are really hard. I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. Your comments are very hard, go to my heart. The work that goes in across the city is amazing on the budget. I mean, I know we discussed this budget as an overview in, 5-6 slides here, but it's supported by, a budget document that's over 400 pages. And the directors participate in the program, their staffs participate in the program, the finance staff, and just the amount of direction and policymaking that comes from the city council is really significant. So it is really an effort by the entire city.
Right. Well, thank you. And then easily stated in a way that people can understand what our priorities are, where our focus will be going forward, and what our basis is for making, in certain circumstances, very difficult decisions. So thank you for putting it together in such a clear and easy to understand package. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Councilmember Tapia.
Yeah, Julie, obviously excellent planning and all the accolades deserved. As you've been head down with the team and the staff looking at our numbers, have you had any opportunity as a CFO for the city to lift up and see how this fits with other trends in other municipalities of our size? Or, are they seeing similar lifts because of the pandemic? Are we seeing more or less? I mean, how would you gauge what you see within our city and what is possible in this budget versus other similar cities?
Sure. So as the pandemic was kicking off, right, in March of 2020, all Highland Park and many of my colleagues around the Chicagoland area, I think we were a little ahead of some municipalities in taking a look at the finances. But once everyone took a look at the finances, they really took a look at the economic downturn from the 2008, 2009 economic situation. And, we took a look at that and said, okay, how do we model after that? How do we take a look at that and learn from it and try to project what is going to happen, over the next few years? And we, most all of us took that and went line by line to say, okay, what things we think will be consistent with that, and what things that we think will not. And given that, we met with the city council several times over 2020 to really go through in-depth analysis of revenues and expenditures, resulting in what I commend the city council for taking actions that were so necessary in making sure that it was spending in the right ways with the expectation that revenues were going to be declining. Now, what wasn't expected by most of us was that the revenues would return faster much faster than 2008, 2009. And that trend is definitely occurring across the different municipalities. Now, what they are doing with their budgets, of course, I don't know yet for 2022, since we're all really doing those at the same time. But yes, the revenue and the revenue turning around, we are definitely seeing that, across our sister municipalities for sure. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Thanks, Mayor. Finance Director Logan, you and your team do an amazing job. And I think this year in particular, we would be remiss if we didn't comment that had you and your direction not put us in a good place during this pandemic. And by being proactive and by being able, as much as we didn't want to make some tough decisions and cutting staff, it was what was needed. And the fact that we planned for the worst and hoped for the best, we got a little bit of that. And had you and your team not gotten so ahead of this at the beginning of this pandemic, brought these difficult decisions to our attention, showed us scenarios and everything else, we'd be in a lot more trouble, you know, than we are today. And part of the reason that I believe we will come out of this better, even though other municipalities are seeing accelerated growth out of the pandemic, we're not out of it yet. And the difficult decisions we made last year, I think, are helping us set a really, really good groundwork for this year. So I know we look at every budget. I know we're used to getting awards for amazing budgets and other things. And then that's become the standard of Highland Park. And we and our residents have come to accept nothing less. But, you know, it's in finance, they teach you about the pyramid, and the foundation is so strong here. We wouldn't be in a position to be up here if the things that were important down here weren't so strong. And part of that strength is your guidance and your team. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stone.
Thanks. I can't say it any better. I just want to echo what Councilmember Stolberg just said. Thank you, Julie and Gita and the whole team.
Terrific. Thank you. Okay, well, on to October with more great conversations about the budget. Thank you, Julie, for everything. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, and with that, I am seeking a motion to go into closed session.
Moved.
Second.
I think we need to have the motion with an explanation of why we're going into closed session and what our statutes are that we are referring for that purpose.
For approval of, legal counsel and appropriate staffing for which I'm sorry, I may be reading the wrong one. I think I need council member Blumberg to take over for that, if you don't mind.
I'm going to need council to remind me of exactly what the section number is. I don't have that.
I'll put it out there. So I'm seeking a motion to go into closed session to approve closed session minutes and to set a price to sell property pursuant to 5 ILCS 122 sub C sub 21 and sub 6.
Thank you, Mayor. So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I was reading it.
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye. 7 ayes, no nays, and we will go into closed session. Please move to the next Zoom room for that purpose.